Hi, welcome to the Yoga Bar videos. Today we will be doing a restorative hip sequence. This whole practice will be done seated. So you could do this in bed, you could do this on a mat, or anywhere on the ground where you would feel comfortable eventually laying down. So take a moment to get somewhere comfortable, and also take a moment to gather a few props, because today you will be wanting perhaps a block, perhaps a strap, and either a blanket or a bolster. And if you don't have a blanket or a bolster, any sort of pillow that you have around the house will probably do just fine. So once you have those, go ahead and set them off to the side of your mat. And we'll begin today in child's pose. So take your knees wide, bring the big toes to touch behind you, and start to sink your hips to your heels. Stretching your arms out in front and perhaps relaxing your forehead down onto that block or all the way onto the mat. We'll settle in here for a minute. Just let your breath soften, start to drop into your practice. If you're doing this at the end of your day, maybe you take a moment to reflect on your day, any highs and lows, physically or emotionally, whatever's brought you to your current state here. Begin to bring your awareness fully to your breath. And throughout this whole practice, you may want to encourage each exhale to be just a count or two longer than each inhale. And in doing this specific fluctuating breath, you're going to encourage relaxation in the body. Take an open mouth exhale here in child's pose. And then inhale to rise up to a tabletop position. We'll be using this as our base position to move into a pigeon pose. So if you prefer to get into pigeon from a downward facing dog, you could certainly move there. So whichever place you decide, take a moment, take another breath, and then begin to move into pigeon with the right leg. Bringing it forward, your right heel will be somewhere near your left hip crease. Taking the heel further out away from the hip will intensify the stretch across your right hip, but it may require that you have support. You could certainly use your block if that's what you've got, taking it underneath the right hip. You could use a blanket for a gentle amount of support, or you could take the bolster and slide it all the way underneath your hips. So get situated in whatever position you need. And then begin to come down forward. The idea here is to find relaxation. This is a favorite yoga pose. It tends to be so bittersweet. It provides deep opening in the hip, but if it becomes too intense for your hip, your knee, or your ankle, then try moving into a little better position with a little more support. Once you feel you've found somewhere that you can rest, we'll be here for 1 minute to enjoy some peace and quiet and stillness. Come back to your breath again and again when you find your mind is wandering. And breathe into the areas that you find tension. See if you can stay for a few more breaths. Enjoy one final exhale in the posture. And then inhale to slowly make your way back out onto your hands. Lifting your chest. Take a moment to remove your support. And transition back to your base posture, either tabletop or downward facing dog. Doing whatever movement you need to loosen up that right hip. Before settling in for another breath and preparing for the next side. So from here, take the left leg forward. Get into this position being just as curious as you were on the first side. Our hips carry a lot of tension, and we usually have one that is much more tight than the other. So if this side is that for you, then don't be afraid to use a little extra support. Or if you can go a bit deeper into the posture, then make your way there. As you settle in, we'll be here again for another minute. Continue to follow your breath. Using your breath as a tool to encourage the relaxation in your body and your mind. Notice where you're holding tension. Stay here for one more slow exhale. And then inhale to make your way back out onto your hands. Removing your support one more time. And returning back to your base of either tabletop or downward facing dog. See what would feel good to release that left hip. And finally relax again when you're ready back into child's pose. This time in child's pose, really reach through your fingertips, making it a little bit more active of a position, creating a bit more space between each rib. From here, slowly walk both hands off the right side of the mat, bringing a deep stretch down your left ribs, even into that left hip. And if you want a little deeper stretch, even bring the left hip back towards the heel to encourage that opening. Take a long, slow, deep inhale and an open mouth exhale. With your next breath in, walk the hands back through the center and off the left side of the mat. Doing the same thing here again, expanding through the right ribs this time. Maybe encourage that right hip to come down towards the heel. And we'll take a full deep breath in, expanding, and an open mouth exhale to relax. Breathe in and return your hands back to the center of the mat. Pause here as you exhale. And then inhale and walk your hands towards your knees as you lift up and make your way to a seated position. Here you may want to grab your blanket or bolster. If all you have is your block, you can certainly sit on that, but I'll be honest, it's not the most comfortable thing. But for most of us, we need a little extra support to encourage our hips, our pelvis specifically, to get into a neutral position when we're seated on our mat. So from here, we'll first be moving into bound angle pose. So for this position, take the soles of the feet to touch and the knees nice and wide. And this is a very versatile posture. You could bring the heels in close to your bottom to get a deep stretch into the inner thighs. Maybe even use your elbows to encourage the opening of that area. You can come down to a fold with this, or even take your hands behind you for a little chest opener. Or you can walk the feet out further away from the body to get a bit more stretch into the outside of the hips. Doing the same options again, either opening in the chest or folding forward. So you find a place that's comfortable for you, and here again we'll stay for a whole minute. If you notice deep rounding in your mid to low back, as you breathe in, think about lifting through your chest. Then maybe with each exhale, you can soften your face, your shoulders, and make your way a little bit deeper into the posture. Enjoy your last exhale here. And then inhale to lift back out. Coming to a tall seat. Take your hands outside of your knees and help bring them up to the center. Give them a good squeeze, a little hug, maybe even rest your forehead down. And then we'll transition to cow face pose. Beginning with the right leg on top, take the left leg underneath and bring the knees as close as you can together. This is a big opener for the hips. You can intensify it by taking the heels away from the hips, or you can make it a little more gentle by taking the heels back towards the hips, or the knees a little further apart, so that you're almost sitting in more of a cross-legged position. Just like pigeon pose, this becomes a bittersweet stretch, so you want to make sure you're at an appropriate level for your body. From here, we'll add on arms. So with an inhale, take your arms high overhead, find a little length. Exhale, take your right arm behind you. And here's where, if you had your strap close by, you could use it if you can't reach your hands behind you. And take the left arm back, bringing the fingertips to touch. Take another inhale to lift in the chest. And then if you have space for it, you can fold forward in this posture. But again, that will intensify it. So make sure you can still breathe, and we'll be here for 3 breaths. At the bottom of your last exhale, engage your core and inhale to lift back up. Slowly unwind your arms and your legs, and we'll move on to the next side. So the right leg will go under, the left leg will go over. And again, just like pigeon, you may feel very different in this position with this hip. And that's okay. Just get to know your body, its tendencies, the difference between the right and left, and resolve to work with wherever you're at today. Once you have your legs settled, we'll add on the arms. So again, inhale, take them high overhead. Exhale, the left arm behind you. The right arm will swing around to meet it. Use your strap if you'd prefer. And once you're settled, take 3 breaths. Maybe coming forward, but still continuing that lift in the chest to encourage the length through the back. With your last inhale, rise back up. Unravel arms and legs. Give them one more squeeze, one more little hug. And from here, we'll transition on to our backs. So laying the length of your mat, take a moment to pause here, almost in Shavasana. Just to get settled, to do any little movements, adjust your clothing, your hair, get comfortable. And from here we'll move into a reclined twist. You can do this many different ways. I'll show you the modification first, and then you can extend into a little deeper variation if you'd like. So let's take both knees into the chest, either one at a time or both together. Rocking around can provide a little release for the low back. And then we'll take the arms out at a T. And this first time, the legs are going to go over to the left side. So as you exhale, release both knees down. And here, if you would like to get deeper, you can start to extend the left leg. And maybe even take that left arm onto the knee. If at any point it becomes too intense of a twist, you can come back out of it, bringing the knees to stack one on top of each other again. Or maybe even use your bolster or blanket or even your block to slide in between your legs to make it even more gentle. So once you take a few moments to get settled, simply relax. Our more restorative twists are often about what you can let go of rather than what you can achieve. So take the next 30 seconds and just be here. Be still and be with your breath. When you're ready to come out of the twist, Slowly bring the knees back to center. Before you move on to the next side, it's always good to take a moment to reflect on what you feel in your body. Especially the low back, the hips. Letting your spine return to neutral here, take another exhale. And when you're ready, begin to make your way to the other side. So this time the knees are going to go down to the right. And in the position Danny's in, this is a great time to show you how to support your shoulder with your bolster. So Danny, if you'll take the bolster and slide it behind your left shoulder. If when you move into twists, this back shoulder tends to kind of hang off of the mat, resting it on the bolster or the blanket can provide a little support and prevent any unwanted strain of that area. Again, once you settle in, find your breath and enjoy 30 seconds of just peace and stillness. When you feel like you've spent about the same amount of time as the first side, then slowly progress back out. Bring the knees to your chest for one final posture in our sequence today. Give them a hug. Just as you did before, reflect. Notice if any tension has left your body. And then finally move into happy baby pose. So taking the soles of the feet towards the ceiling, stretch your knees wide. And you want to relax the low back here. So if you needed to modify this position, you could always take your hands to your shins, holding on to the calves. Here you can maybe roll the ankles, find a little movement. This is an inversion for the lower half, so it's a wonderful one to do if you've been standing all day long. Get a little relief in your feet. And if here you still don't quite feel like your low back is able to relax, maybe take your hands all the way behind your hamstrings and simply hold there. The idea is to find movement, to find a position that works in your body. And that might mean straightening one leg, the other, rocking. From here, we'll move into our Shavasana pose. So take your time to relax all the way onto your mat. Since this is a more restorative sequence today, if you wanted to find a little extra release for your psoas, the deepest core muscle that we have, you could always take your bolster and slide it just underneath your hamstrings so that the back of the knees rest at the very end of the bolster. Let your hands fall down at your sides with the palms facing up. And take a moment to scoot your shoulder blades together on your back, giving your chest and your heart center a gentle place to rest. And this position will bring our sequence today to a close. So however much time you have to relax and enjoy Shavasana, please do so. Enjoy the stillness. And know all you have to do here is breathe. So until our next video, we'll see you soon. Namaste.